Welcome back. So, as is characteristic of the morning brief, we celebrate the achievements of Nigerians home and abroad, such that we find inspiration in what we're doing. And we're getting inspiration from some exceptional Nigerians who have been privileged to be recipients of the US President Lifetime Achievement Award. So we're looking at the impact of their volunteer service over the years in their communities in the United States of America. So this morning we are celebrating and honoring the contributions of Nigerians like Desmond Alufohai and Praise Fowowe, who have become recipients of the US President Lifetime Achievement Award. So let's welcome this morning Mr. Desmond Alufohai. He's a recipient, US President's Lifetime Achievement Award, and Director of Protocol and International Affairs Division, Miami-Dade Aviation Department, Florida, United States of America, and International Trade Specialist, who joins us from Florida, USA. And we also have Praise Fowowe. He's a recipient, US President's Lifetime Achievement Award, family strategist and consultant. He's also the founder, the Institute of Family Engineering and Development Africa, IFED. He joins us from Aubrey, Texas. Good morning, gentlemen, and thank you for joining us on the program.
Thank you. Good morning.
So I'm going to start with you, Praise. Thank you for joining us again, gentlemen. I want you to talk to us about the US President's Lifetime Achievement Award. Give us a sense of perhaps the equivalent of this award in Nigeria. What exactly, the origin of the award, and what it takes to be a recipient of the Lifetime Achievement Award.
Okay, thank you very much. I think the equivalent will be maybe the ZON or the MON that they give to distinguished Nigerians. It's a volunteering award. I mean, you must have done like 4,000 hours of volunteering in your community, and then you must have achieved certain milestones in transforming your community, basically. So I got into the US about 4 years ago, and I've worked in the family life space, volunteering and supporting the African American community with transformative solutions that helps them build a better family life. The interesting thing is, I mean, this is something I've done over the years in Nigeria, pioneering the space in Nigeria, but I didn't quite know that anybody was watching, really. And that's the intriguing part for me, because I didn't even know anything about it until I got the call that I was being nominated, and eventually I got the certificates and what have you. And so I'm totally overwhelmed, by what the fact that you are in a country that recognize whatever you're doing, regardless of where you're doing it. And I think that's something that really, really stuck by me, because I mean, when I was in Nigeria, every time I saw people win an award, I kept asking myself, what else do I need to do? Because I've done a whole lot way back, and so it's a testament to the fact that someday what you get to do gets noticed and then gets recognized somewhere by someone.
All right, Desmond, same question, but this time around, you may also want to talk to us about what goes into tracking your hours of service. That rounds up to 4,000. I believe that you must have put in about 4,000 of hours of community service before you qualify for the award.
First and foremost, thank you for having me. I'm in Miami, Florida, and still trying to keep awake. And obviously, I'm still basking in the euphoria of receiving the President's Lifetime Achievement Award for Leadership and Voluntary Service. Muhammad Ali had taught us that service to others is the rent we pay for the room we live here on earth. As my fellow recipient was explaining, this was actually started by President H.W. Bush in the year 2000, in the year 2002, when he addressed Congress by asking Americans to make time to help their neighbors, their communities, and to dedicate at least 4,000 hours. I actually have more than 10,000 hours because of my involvement in the JCs, which is Junior Chamber International, starting as president of the Uniben JCs. I still remember my very distinct first project, which was helping to clear the streets of Benin, a city of 1 million cans. And so from 1983 up until now, I was able to capture more than 10,000 hours of voluntary service thanks to Junior Chamber International. I've been in the US since 1985, and so my involvement with the JCs, traveling all over the world and serving in many capacities of leadership as the chairman of several non-for-profit organizations. And so, as you can see, I'm proudly wearing the medal today, and it's such an honor, as my fellow recipients have mentioned, to have the honor to be called to come and receive the Presidential Award for all of your life's voluntary service and leadership.
All right, Mr. Alufawai, let me stay with you for a moment. You've been there, if I get your information correctly, for about 40 years or so. You've been in the United States. Image is part of a problem when it comes to immigrants and Africa and all of that. How has this helped and in shaping how the people you work around perceive you as a Nigerian coming from Africa?
That is a very excellent question. And of course, as a Nigerian in the diaspora, this is some of the conundrum that we face because of the perception and the negative image of corruption and what have you about our country. But for me, it's truly about educating the rest of the world about the resiliency and the brilliance of Nigerians. Of course, you know that in the United States, Nigerians are the most educated immigrant group in the US. And so I use that to say, don't use the few bad eggs to judge an entire nation. Of course, thanks to our entertainment, our music, our cuisine, Nigerians are excelling all over the world. There is no sector, there is no place you will go that you will not see Nigerians in the top echelons of the entire spectrum. So for me, obviously, there is no nation that does not have their own bad eggs. So every day I wake up, I promote the fact that I'm a very proud Nigerian, and we Nigerians have contributed so much to the world.
Right, and I think that's a great one. And same question to you as well. How do you think this has changed the perception of Nigerians, even African migrants generally, in the United States?
Thank you very much. Like my fellow recipients kindly said, one of the things I always say to people is that, you see, there is nothing that is bad about Nigeria, that what is good about us cannot be addressed. And so I always say to my colleagues out here, every time I go to work or volunteer or stay on the project, that you cannot judge Nigeria by the misbehavior of a few. And I always wear Nigeria on my sleeves everywhere I go. I mean, I dress like this every time I go out. And I always say to them, if you are looking for a proper Nigerian, look at me, all right? And so one of the things I've realized is that our people are resilient, our people are very brilliant, right? Maybe leadership is what has done on this over time, but I believe that is changing as well. And so consistently, there are so many Nigerians doing amazing things out here. And what we say is that, I mean, you cannot look at Nigerians and say to everyone that Nigeria is corrupt, and that literally play out. I mean, I remember that in my space, the Family Life, so we were having a conference, and then there was this program they designed for everyone, and they said everyone should do it, should take the course. And I was asking them, how did you design this course? Did you consult any African before designing this course? And they were like, oh yeah, we believe it would affect everyone. And I said, no. Have you ever watched a Nollywood movie? and they were asking me what is Nollywood, and I said, if you have not seen Nollywood, then you don't know anything about Africa. On the strength of my presentation in the room, what they wanted everyone to say couldn't pass. And so I always say to our people that you might just be the last hope that gives them the right impression about Nigeria. And that's why we stand and we represent Nigeria, wearing Nigeria on our sleeves everywhere we go. To know that Nigerians are brilliant, Nigerians are intelligent, and Nigerians, given a level playing ground, they will most likely beat any other race to their game, given the chance.
Absolutely.
And I see both of you agree on that. So it's good we're having this conversation, because I also want to know your Nigerian story. What a lot of people say, or at least the section of people will say, is Nigeria happened to them, even though that in itself is a bit tricky, because it doesn't say anything. Did a certain person happen to you, or did a system happen to you? And all, just saying Nigeria happened to them is quite vague. So I'd like to know your Nigerian story. Maybe this can also help, because you talked about volunteering. You said you were doing this in Nigeria, but then you did this in the US and you got an award for it. I was just thinking about it. How big are we on volunteering and making sure that, you know, we institute it? Even community service, even though that's sort of punitive, it's not a thing you hear about a lot in Nigeria as well. So I want to know what your Nigeria story is and how it's sort of different now where you are.
Okay, I'm going to tell you that when people say that Nigeria happened to them, I believe Nigeria gave me everything I've become, because my story is so peculiar. I mean, it started from my youth service. I got back to Ajegunle. I was living in Ajegunle, and I was taking a walk around where they call Good Evening Street in Ajegunle, and I literally saw underage who were prostituting at a motel called, I think it was Niger Hotel. And I got back to my room. I was complaining, government is bad. Why can't government, round up these people? And I felt a leading to say, Praise, you can do something. I was like, I didn't have money to rehabilitate. I said, but you can go back there and talk these girls out of prostitution. And that was how I started. Went back the following day, disguised as a customer, and started talking girls out of prostitution. As a matter of fact, I became so successful in Nigeria way back that the motel owners, they want to see me. But the more I took girls out, the more others went to replace them. And so I started a program in Nigeria called Gold in the Slum. And a whole lot of some of the top people you see come out of Nigeria today, they were in that movement. Some of them have become PhD holders in Nigeria. Started that program, started looking for solution for every problem I saw in the family life space. Children were being sexually molested. Created the most comprehensive sexual education kit, that can checkmate sexual abuse. From there, created parenting solution till I created the first ever family life certification program, which is now being used across Africa, which has produced over 1,300 family life, certified professionals. The interesting thing was, what brought me to America was a special talent visa, which American government instituted to say, okay, if you claim you've done X, Y, Z, come and replicate it in America. And so they had to check everything I've done in Nigeria. They checked the family life space. Lagos State government passed the law for premarital counseling. I had to fly myself back to Nigeria, created a curriculum for Lagos State government pro bono, right? And so my work has spoken for itself over the years, and it was on the basis of what I've done in Nigeria, the problem I've solved, that gave me the O1 visa. Now, within 1 year, I'd replicated the same results in America, which gave me a green card, which gave me my permanent residency. So I always say to people that every time you see a problem in Nigeria is an opportunity for you to innovate a solution that can solve the problem. Because we can't wait for government to, we keep talking about government is bad. Everything we call government, the people were taken from among us. So there is what we can do in our little corners. So when people say Nigeria happened to them, I always say to people, well, Nigeria made me, because if I didn't see the problem, I wouldn't respond. If I didn't respond to the problem, I may not even have been relevant the way I am right now.
So my lane is a little bit different. I grew up in Sabongida Ora, a small town in Owan West local government area in Edo State, and attended Uniben. It was while I was in Uniben that I joined the JCs, which is an international organization equivalent to Rotary and the Lions. And one of the tenets of the JCs is that service to humanity is the best work of life. So as soon as I finished my youth corps in 1985, I came to the US to continue my master's degree and continued with US JCs and held several positions. To be honest with you, I never thought that I would get any recognition for serving my community. And of course, because I was the director of Africa and the Middle East, the JCs gave me the opportunity to travel extensively over the world. I have visited close to 100 countries and flown almost 2 million miles. So you can see, for me, it was really easy to meet my more than 4,000 hours. And so I'm just grateful that the US government recognized me for this. I really didn't wake up thinking I'm doing this so I can get an award. It's just because as a junior chamber member, one of our goals is to provide community service.
So I'm going to come to you now, Praise. You are a family life strategist, and you're known as a visionary leader in that space. I'd like you to speak a bit more about measuring the impact of your work and how it has impacted African American families to solve some of the challenges of drugs and crime, teenage pregnancy, single mom parenting without the fatherhood figure in the space. So how far has your work gone in changing this narrative?
So, I mean, we've done a lot. Like I always say to people, like when I got to America, I had to map out, my strategy because, I mean, my green card was going to be premised on my ability to replicate what I'd done in Nigeria over here. And so I had to look at where the African communities usually gather, and I found the churches. And so, I mean, thankfully, we have quite a number of African-led churches. And so I had to design a program because I noticed that a lot of the young people, if we have to groom them right, we have to find a place where they go, where you can institute a program that can help them, maybe a curriculum that you can run. And so I found quite a number of churches. I work with over 130 churches to create a junior church effective system for the young people in there, then the parenting system. So I was running parenting workshops regularly. Now, one of the highlights of the program was interacting with a teenager, who told me his goal was, his deepest desire was to kill his dad. He was going to shoot his dad because of what his dad had done to his mom. Now, if we didn't create that intervention, we wouldn't have even known. So we created what we call Ready for Life program, where young Africans can actually come and learn every Saturday. And so we're able to broker a truce between him and his dad, and they're doing very well today. Now, you see, the highlight for me was the fact that a lot of Africans in the diaspora, especially in the US, our teenagers, they don't even know a lot about the African nations. What they knew about are the misbehaviors and the bad stories they've had. I remember one of the classes, I was talking about, the Benin Kingdom and the greatness of the whole Benin Kingdom. And almost all the teenagers in class were literally crying to say, no, you can't mean it, this didn't happen. And I said, go through history. So we had to go on Google, and we brought out the history of Benin, and we're able to use that, to inspire a whole lot of them. I can tell you for free right now that there are so many communities we've started right now where our people are being helped by indigenous innovation. Because oftentimes in America, the African, we go to the American therapist. The American therapist does not understand the nuances. For example, a typical child will be diagnosed of ADHD. Now, I'm not saying there are no children with ADHD, but take, for instance, a child who migrated from Nigeria, who used to sell gala in traffic, running after buses. If he comes to America, he's going to be a bit restless, and they're going to likely diagnose him, or tell him that he has ADHD. Meanwhile, the child is just normal because he's playing around in Africa. There is no winter. So he has 12 months to play outside. Here, you only have about 3 months or 4 months to play outside, right? So we are re-educating even the therapists right now to say, hey, can you take a second look at how you treat Africans, how you diagnose them, because you don't have cultural intelligence about our people. So our work is literally advocating, and we are showing our result to say the intervention, the family system engineering model actually has produced better results for Africans who are going through marital crisis in accurately diagnosing what they're going through and creating intervention. Let me shock you. I was actually stunned when I met people who have been in therapy for 7 years, going to for a session almost every week for 7 years, and I'm like, what are you doing? 7 years. Some of those people were able to create intervention that helped them in 13 weeks. So we are literally tracking our work in various families, and we've extended beyond America because I was invited by one of the universities in Canada to lead a conversation on the future of African kids in Canada as well. And we've extended it a bit to the UK as well. So we're doing a whole lot to say, let's create African solutions to African problems and not just impose something that is not even relevant to our people on them.
Let's take it to Mr. Desmond. I'm happy Praise has made some comments, and you've lived in the US, Mr. Desmond, a lot longer. And I was just smiling when he was saying a few things about cultural differences and understanding our culture. And I said to myself, I'm going to tell Mr. Desmond, maybe we'll start from educating Americans so that Africa is not a continent. It's not just one country. It's a continent made up of 54 countries. Because when I see the vox pop people do on the street, I'm like, how can people be this ignorant about Africa? But anyway, that's an aside. But let's talk to you, Mr. Desmond, about looking from outside in. And I want you to speak to the issue of patriotism and reward system in public service, since you've served in public service for quite a while.
That's a very excellent question. And it also has to do with the mindset and the reward system. So in the US, integrity, those of us who are professionals, we value integrity. And with integrity and the work that you do, you get your reward. And so it is very, very important and very, very critical that we reward integrity, dedication, and a commitment. Part of the frustration that we have when, as diasporans living outside of our nation, is to see the types of things that are rewarded. Of course, part of the conundrum that we see every day is the political polarities in Nigeria, as well as the so-called corruption. And so we have to be very mindful to make sure that, particularly for the next generation, we have this paradigm shift to say hard work really pays. Look at the work that Mr. Praise has been able to do in another country for the past 4 or 5 years, and look at the reward he's already receiving. And so we have to create that groundswell. We have to create that platform so that many of our youths look towards service as a reward system and not the other way around. Of course, they think that the so-called being a Yahoo boy, it's a way to earn a quick living. But you also have to consider the consequence of that, and knowing that that is not the long-term solution at all. So your question is very apropos. It's something that I would say, let us change our mindset, let us change the paradigm to begin to show people, particularly our youth, that hard work is relevant, hard work pays, and we need to do more in that regard.
Fantastic. I was going to follow up and ask then, when you talk about reward, some say the reason you find some of these sharp practices, and I'm going to be specific now, in civil service, is because some of them complain that the reward is not enough. So which comes first? Is it the good reward that gives birth to integrity, or integrity comes whether or not you're being rewarded well in that sense? I don't know if that's a dilemma you also face.
Well, I mean, regardless of which country, every country have their own issues. What I'm proposing is that we need to have a mindset, because if I know that, okay, so we have a system where I know that if I do A, B, C, D, at the end of the year, I will get certain types of rewards. I will get bonuses. So I have that incentive to work hard to achieve that. And so your question, regardless of which comes first, all I'm saying is integrity and reward are linked. And people have to be incentivized to know that at the end of the road, if you put in the hard work, if you achieve A, B, C, D, this is where you will end up.
All right. So many indeed lessons to learn from this conversation, lessons of patriotism, hard work, and for everyone in the social strata, perhaps, to ensure that ordinary Nigerians are also recipients of the equivalent of this award back home, beyond the cream of the society who are the recipients of this award, to engender a sense of patriotism that permeates across the whole strata of the Nigerians. We want to thank you very much, gentlemen, and of course congratulate you on receiving the U.S. President's Lifetime Achievement Award. We've been talking with Mr. Desmond Alufohai, who is the Director of Protocol and International Affairs Division, Miami-Dade Aviation Department, Florida, USA, an international trade specialist who joined us from Florida, USA, and also Mr. Praise Fowe, recipient of U.S. President's Lifetime Achievement Award and family strategist and consultant and founder, Institute of Family Engineering and Development, Africa, who joined us from Aubrey, Texas. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for your time on the program.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jeffrey, Bukola, and Kayode. I really appreciate this. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Indeed, it's been an honor as well. So from the USA, we turn our attention back home to Delta State, to be precise, where we, do a check on infrastructure development. So join us for this conversation. We'll be right back.